Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be reading some, by popular demand, spooky Reddit stories while I play in my Minecraft realm. So get ready for some uber scary stories. Anyways, if you like this kind of content, feel free to drop a like, subscribe, comment. Doing any of those things would be pretty epic. But, anyways, as always, I appreciate you tuning in to watch me play a little bit in my Minecraft realm while I read some interesting Reddit stories. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into our first scary Reddit story. Our first story comes from r/scary stories. About 2 years ago, I was driving home from a family reunion pretty late at night. The drive was about 2 hours. I didn't stay the night because I had to be back for work the following day. Most of the drive was on roads with dense bushes and trees on either side. The real creepy ones you see a lot in the movies. Anyway, I'd been driving about 45 minutes and I was starting to get really tired. You know how sometimes you just suddenly become really tired out of nowhere? Well, yeah, that happened to me. I knew I wasn't going to last, but I didn't come across any place that I felt like I could park and safely sleep. Anyway, after it became clear to me that I wasn't going to find a place to pull up and my tiredness wasn't going away, I did something very questionable. I pulled over to the side of the road onto the grass, behind some bushes, to try and hide my car from anybody else who was going to come past. The roads weren't empty. I came across another car every few minutes or so. I made a mental note that the time was 11:22 and then fell asleep. Some time after, I was awoken by a scratching sound. I looked at the clock. 11:50. The sound stopped after a few seconds, and because I was still extremely tired, I didn't bother looking around and simply went back to sleep. I was later awoken by the same sound, and it was now 12:40. This time it really freaked me out because the sound did not stop. The thought ran across my mind that it was just an animal inspecting the car, but why would it return almost an hour after it had left the previous time? I looked in my rearview mirror and just managed to catch a glimpse of something running away into the forest. Now, at the time, I thought it was the damn hook killer. You know, the one that scratched the couple's car, then slaughtered the guy when he got out to investigate. F that, I thought to myself. So, I got the hell out of there. There was a bend no more than 100 yards up the road. As I came around it, there was a car parked at the side of the road with a driver's side door opened. I slowed down just to look to see if anyone was in there. There wasn't. Then I looked in my rearview mirror. I didn't see anything. And all of a sudden, this guy comes sprinting around the corner. He starts screaming at me, stuff like, "Hey, hey, you, get out of your car now." Nope. I sped off. I never saw the guy again. Moral of the story: don't sleep on the side of a deserted road. And that story is now over. It's nice to see in a scary story someone actually have common sense. I feel like when it comes to like horror movies, and I know this is a real life experience, not a movie, but you see a lot of people make silly decisions, and it's nice to see that the OP saw this guy running down the road saying to get out of the car, screaming at them, and they just drove off. That's what I would have done too. Just get out of there. So that was a good ending. Happy they were safe at the end of the day, but it kind of gives you pause for if you ever wanted to fall asleep on the side of the road. Just try to get home, I guess. It's kind of the moral of the story. And don't sleep on the side of the road. Anyway, let's go ahead and dive into another story. True story time. I was about 4 or 5 years old, and my parents had just separated. My mom was living in a two-bedroom apartment. I had my own room, but I preferred to sleep in her bed whenever I was staying with her. Our two bedrooms were at the end of a hallway, directly across from each other. Our apartment was on the first floor, and I remember that it was in the middle of the summer, and my mom had a window open to her room, which was directly behind the bed, above the headboard. Anyways, I woke up in the middle of the night and remember sitting up and seeing that our cat was sitting in the doorframe of my mom's room. Her door was open and you could partially see into my bedroom. This was strange because our cat was typically always in bed with us. As I was watching him, he walked into my bedroom and meowed. I turned my face to my mom and to wake her up. In 3 to 4 seconds it took for her to wake up and ask me what was wrong, we both looked back up in the doorframe, and there was a man standing by my open door, making his way out of my bedroom. I still don't know how she managed to do it so quickly, but my mother proceeded to pick me up and literally throw me out of the screen window. Again, we were on the first floor, and it was maybe a 3 foot drop to the ground. She quickly followed, and we were able to start screaming for help, and someone called 911. The police came, but didn't see any signs of forced entry, only that our front door was unlocked, which led them to believe the man must have exited that way. The strange thing was that my mom swore up and down that she had locked the door that night with the deadbolt and the chain lock. About a week later, she was cleaning the kitchen and opened up our water heater closet and found a notebook with names and drawings, as well as a pair of gloves and some gum wrappers. The police were called again, but all they could do was speculate that the man had been in our house and hid until we were asleep. Edit. Just to clarify, our apartment was on ground level, so my mother didn't hurl me into potential paralysis, just a 3-ish foot drop to the grass. That story is now over. That is one of my irrational fears, that someone is like living in my attic or living like in the walls or something. Let me know if you guys ever think about that. But every time I hear like a crack, like, a pop in the ceiling or a pop behind the wall, I'm like, hold up, wait a minute. But no, that is terrifying. Good on your mom for getting you out of harm's way first, and then sounds like she followed right in suit right after you. So that is a crazy story. Crazy that someone was living in your house or your apartment while you guys were. I wonder where they were hiding. Was he really just hiding in the hot water heater room, I guess? That's crazy. How did I and things like that, I'm like, how do they get in and out? Like, because they have to get in and out daily, I would assume. So how does that work? But anyways, let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Let's go ahead and dive into another story. Our next story is about a scary occurrence in the woods while camping. A group of friends was staying at this remote cabin that one of my friend's cousins owned. There were no roads leading to the cabin, and it was a good 3-4 day hike from where you parked the cars. I couldn't go at the time as everyone else due to work obligations, so I decided to head up the same day, but later. It would mean I would have to camp for a night by myself, though. The latter part of the trail is too dangerous to be taken at night, especially by someone who doesn't know it. I didn't care. I was kind of looking forward to it as I've never camped alone before. So, I was in the middle of these woods when the sun went down. I got my camp set up in this small clearing, probably 40 feet across. Get my campfire going, and I pitch my small 1-person tent. Do all that camping stuff like cooking hot dogs on a stick over the fire and s'mores. I probably stay up for a good 2 or 3 hours after dark. It was mid-autumn, so the days were somewhat short. The entire time I thought I heard stuff moving in the woods on the edge of the clearing. I didn't think anything of it at first because the woods are full of animals, but as the night went on, I realized that whatever it was just circling the clearing over and over. Once I started paying attention to it, it made 4 or 5 laps around before I started to get up and investigate. The noise stopped as soon as I stooped up, and I thought I heard something going away through the woods. I casually shrugged it off, thinking it was some fox that was curious that got scared when I stood up. I decided it was time to sleep, douse the fire, and climb into my tent. I started to doze off and stay in that half sleep, half awake state for a while. I normally hear weird stuff when I'm in this state, so I didn't think much of it when I heard a voice. Something wakes me all the way up though, and I realize the voice is real, and it's right outside my tent. It's just above a whisper, and I'm not sure if it was another language or if they were just speaking English in such a way that I couldn't understand. I lay there for some time, I don't know how long, listening and waiting for something to happen. There is just enough moonlight to light up the walls of the tent, so I can see when a hand presses into the wall of my tent down near my foot. This freaks me out, and I sit up quickly. Whoever was outside of the tent tore out of there, like running full sprint through the woods. I get out of the tent and shine my flashlight around and see nothing. I was expecting there to be a bloody handprint on the tent, but nope. Didn't sleep that night, packed up camp at first light that morning, and booked it to the cabin. That is the end of this story. So, I rarely go camping because I'm not a big enjoyer of it. Okay. I would never go camping alone because of things like that. Okay. There is no shot. If that happened to me, I might just pass away in my tent of fear. I cannot even lie. That is a crazy, crazy story. Glad to hear that the OP is fine. But that makes you wonder, was that something paranormal or was that just some crazy person out in the woods? Who knows, right? But let me know what you guys think of that story below. And let's go ahead and dive into another story. Our next story is titled True Scary Story. My name is Michael, and I'm a 14-year-old boy who lives with my aunt in the countryside. Now, out here, we have no neighbors, and the closest place to my house is about 8 miles away. I've always loved living out here because I've always liked the seclusion, and the road we live by is always dead at night, which makes for really good sleep. Now, my aunt is always working the night shift, so this means I would be home alone pretty much every night. Long story short, I came home from school on a relatively crappy day, thunderstorms and rain all day and all night, and spent my day playing video games and Snapchatting my friends. At around 9 p.m., my aunt came upstairs and told me she was heading off to her job. I was always fine with this because I liked being home alone. I had full range of the house and could play loud music all I wanted. Who wouldn't love it? At about 11 p.m., I started feeling tired and laid down to watch some YouTube and go to sleep. And soon enough, I did. I woke up at some odd hour of the night to somebody knocking on the door. I sat up and muttered, "What the hell?" I thought my aunt got home from the night shift and reluctantly went to go answer the door out of habit. I checked the window beside the door to make sure it was her, but there was nobody there. I thought to myself, probably some stupid kids knocking on my door and then running away. And I dismissed it as that and went back to my room. I checked my phone to realize it was 3 a.m., and the thought of teenagers ding dong ditching my house was suddenly out of the question, given that it was a Wednesday and I basically lived in the middle of nowhere. Just as I was thinking, I heard a bang come from the basement. I jumped and tried to make an excuse like a noise of the thunderstorm to calm me down. We always kept our basement door locked anyway out of my aunt's paranoia and fear of someone breaking in. That's when I heard footsteps slowly creaking up the old wooden stairs in my basement. Frozen with fear, I grabbed my phone and called 911. The operator told me to go to an upstairs room in the house and grab a weapon to defend myself. But there was no way I was going to grab a knife from the kitchen, especially when I heard the door being slammed and quickly realized that someone was trying to bust it down. I jumped from my bed and closed my door quietly and hid in my closet like the 911 operator had told me to do. This was easily the scariest moment of my life, but suddenly the banging stopped. But what comes next will haunt me for my entire life. Whoever it was screamed at the top of their lungs, but it wasn't a normal scream. It was an insane and disgruntled scream, and then I heard the basement door collapse. Now he was full out screaming as he sprinted up the stairs. He went through all the rooms, down the upstairs hallway, still screaming until he reached mine. My door, unfortunately, didn't have a lock on it, and when I heard him open my door, I was paralyzed with fear. I could see him through the shades of my closet. He was still screaming, looking all over my room, even under my bed. But then, after trying to hold my breath for too long, I let out a puff of air. He perked up, looked straight at my closet, and slowly walked towards it, no longer screaming. I couldn't even breathe at the moment, especially when he stopped right in front of the closet. I could see him through the closet, and he had the biggest smile I had ever seen. As soon as he slowly reached for the closet doorknob, there was a loud bang at the door and somebody yelling, "Police!" The man quickly ran and tried to run out of my window, but failed. As soon as I saw the police tackle him, I instantly ran out of the closet and outside, now realizing that was a stupid move on my part. After a couple of minutes, I saw the police bring the man out in cuffs, but on the way to the car, he stared at me with the biggest smile and craziest eyes I have ever seen. Watching him ride away with the police was the greatest moment of my life. But what still haunts me today is the face he made as he was standing in front of my closet door, ready to do something horrible. And that is the end of the story. That was traumatizing. I cannot imagine the amount of fear going through you, the poster during that time. Being home alone, your aunt is gone, you're asleep, you think you hear a noise, you wake up, go to the door, no one's there. You go back to your room thinking it must have been someone ding dong ditching. Maybe it was just something you heard. To then hear someone break in through the basement and then come screaming through the house, not even trying to be quiet, but screaming. No, count me out. That is crazy, but good on them for, immediately calling the police, because just imagine if he hadn't called the police quickly enough, what could have potentially happened, right? So good on the poster for doing that as soon as they possibly could and hiding. You know, it saved them just enough time to where the police could get there and apprehend the guy. But for the guy to still be smiling even after he was arrested, that's like another level of crazy. I wish you could like see if there was like the arrest, like what they put, and like when's his trial, things like that. I wish there was some type of follow up like that. That would have been nice. But anyways, let's go ahead and dive into another story. The next story that we are going to dive into is actually another subscriber story, and it's from Micah. Micah just wanted to give you a quick shout out and say thank you again for sending over another story. If anyone else wants to send a story, whether it's their own personal story or maybe just a story that you found online, can be Reddit or on another website that you just want me to read and react to, send it to the email in the description below. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive into Micah's story. It is titled, "That Isn't My Cousin." When I was about 7 years old, my cousins came over for a sleepover. Let's call them Marcus and Samantha. We played games, watched a movie, and did all the normal sleepover stuff. They came over in the late afternoon, and after it got dark, we stayed inside, ate some food, and just hung out. Around 9 p.m., we all went into my bedroom, and eventually we fell asleep. A little while later, I woke up because I wanted some water. I was terrified of the dark back then, so naturally, I grabbed a book as my weapon. I went into the kitchen and drank some tap water because we hadn't refilled the water pitcher yet. When I got back into my room, I somehow didn't notice that my cousins were already gone. I remember thinking, huh, that's weird. Then I saw something move under my bed. I looked underneath and saw two eyes staring right back at me. My 7-year-old brain immediately thought, oh, that has to be my cousins sleeping under the bed. So I just climbed back into the bed and went to sleep. The next morning, I asked my mom where my cousins were. She said they left after you fell asleep. My heart absolutely sank, because if they left while I was asleep, then what was under my bed? I told my mom what happened, but she said it was probably a dream. The thing is, I remember everything so clearly. It felt way too real to be a dream. Ever since that night, I've always slept with my lights on. And that is the end of Micah's story. So before I get into my thoughts, I just wanted to say thank you again, Micah, for sending in another story. I really do appreciate it. It means a ton. That is a very terrifying story. I can't imagine only being 7 and witnessing something like that. Thinking in the moment, oh, it's just one of my cousins, to having the realization the next morning that, oh my goodness, it wasn't one of my cousins. What in the world could that have been? I would hate to have been in your shoes. But happy that you survived to tell the tale. But anyways, thank you again, Micah, for sending your story in. I really do appreciate it. Guys, let me know what you think of Micah's story down in the comments section below. And if you have a story of your own or a story that you found online that you think is just an interesting read overall, feel free to send it to the email in the description. Alrighty, guys, let's go ahead and dive into our next story. The next story that we're going to dive into today is titled Paranormal Experiences at Our Family Farm. Our family farm has been in our family for generations upon generations. Everyone was born there and died there, many under suspicious circumstances. My 93-year-old grandfather and his brother were the last to be born there in the 1930s. My great uncle was the last to die there in around 2013, found by the fence. He had blunt force trauma to the back of the head, and there was a fire set, assuming to hide evidence, but instead of engulfing him, it looked like someone or something protected his body perfectly, like a circle around him that preserved his body. My great uncle always wore Old Spice deodorant, and every time my dad and I walked through a small hallway, we always smelled it out of nowhere. In the living room, I always had a gut feeling someone was in a red chair in the corner. I would never sit there, my dog would never go in, and my young niece wouldn't either. When she was really little, she pointed out and said ghost, and has never been back in there. This is the craziest experience I've had though. We had a screened in porch on the back with a hanging porch swing. In the summertime, it's warm and there's a perfect breeze. I set a 30-minute timer to take a nap on the porch swing. We all know the house is probably haunted, but that's family, so we're all comfortable. I drifted off on the porch swing and slightly pushed myself off so it would swing slightly, and I took my nap. I woke up after my 30-minute alarm and opened my eyes to the porch swing still strongly swinging. It had been 30 minutes and I barely pushed it to start. There are two chains that hold up the swing on either side. The swinging was coming from one side primarily, like someone was pushing the swing, but only from the left side slash left chain. I bolted up and ran across the screen porch and looked. Obviously, no one was there, and the porch swing immediately stopped swinging. It spooked me enough to not try that again. The swing incident happened last summer, and I do feel bad. It was probably my great grandmother or someone maternal in my family just trying to push me on the porch swing. Now, I leave a bit of bourbon beside the red chair in the living room and always wave when I pass by. I apologize for the long windedness of my story, but really appreciate you if you stayed to listen. And that is the end of our story. All right. I really like that story because although it's a kind of spooky ghost paranormal story, I do like that at the end of the day, the poster kind of rounded it up to, yeah, it's probably just my family members. So even though it's scary in the moment, it's probably just my great grandmother pushing me on the swing. So even though it's a ghost story, I guess that's kind of a little bit of a wholesome story in the end. Anyways, let's go ahead and dive into our next story. Alrighty, guys, that is going to do it for me today. If you liked these horror stories, please let me know down in the comments. Leaving a like would be epic. Subscribing might even be more epic. I would really appreciate it and it would mean a lot. But I know typically a lot of my videos, they kind of go genre to genre. Like each video is a mashup where we're going from Am I in the Wrongs to wholesome to scary stories. If you like that, let me know and I'll continue to make videos like that. Or if you like content like this video where it's solely scary stories, let me know because I can start to break them out. Video by video would be genre by genre. So we'd have a scary story video, then a wholesome story video, and then a am I in the wrong video. So just let me know which you prefer. I'm down to do either. At the end of the day, I just want to make entertaining content for you guys. So whatever you prefer, let me know. Again, I just want to say, especially if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much. It's crazy to me that, just over a month of posting, yes, I said us, we've made this little group, this little community where you guys come and listen to the stories that I like to tell while playing, in my Minecraft realm. So I just wanted to say again, thank you so much for stopping by, listening to these stories. It means the world to me. So truly, thank you. Let me know if there's any way that I can improve these videos because like I said, these are for your entertainment. So if there's any way that I can make these better, please let me know down in the comments. And just a quick touch base. This will be my last thing I say, but let me know if you have a story that you want me to tell, whether it's your own personal story or one that you found online. Feel free to send it to the email in the description below. But anyways, guys, love y'all. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll talk soon. Peace.